Thank you, Roger, for the very kind introduction. And thank you, Alan, for inviting me to this wonderful event. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be here in front of you. And as already mentioned, my name is Jaan Saar. I'm from the Ministry of Economic Affairs in Estonia. I like stories. I have 2 kids. I like reading stories to them. And today, I'm going to tell you a story about obstacles, overcoming obstacles, of ambition, but above all, a story about hope, a hope for a brighter future. Our story begins in Estonia. Let's have a quick poll. How many of you have heard about Estonia before? Quite a lot. How many of you have been to Estonia? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I'd say the minority has been to Estonia. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the country I come from. It's a small country, 1.3 million. I know Ireland is about 5 million, right? So we're even smaller than you guys. We have the euro. We are members of the European Union, proud members for quite a while now. Member of NATO and all these wonderful organizations here. And the location, as you can see, is right below Finland. So we kind of consider ourselves part of the Nordics, although we are geographically part of the Baltics as well. So we're at the kind of tipping point of where the Nordics go into Baltics and the Eastern Europe. But it's a nice place. And 7% of our GDP is focused or comes from the ICT sector. For construction, it's more. Construction makes up about 11%. So what is special about Estonia? One thing that is special about Estonia is that we were the first country in the world to put 99% of our public services online. And Wired magazine has called us the most digital society in the world. And there's plenty of other names and awards that have been given to us, but we have an advantage. One advantage is that we're small, and Estonia was for quite a long period after the Second World War under Soviet rule. Now, this was not a happy time for us. But we became re-independent again in 1991. But we were faced with a huge challenge. We had to rebuild all of our systems, all of our processes. We had to rebuild a government from scratch. But luckily, this was exactly the time when this little thing called an internet was becoming a thing. And this enabled us to take advantage of new technologies, new systems, new digital processes, and implement them directly in government. So that is why you can do everything online in Estonia. You can do your taxes in 3 minutes. You can, we vote online. You can get your prescription online. And it only takes a few hours to start a company. You can even become an electronic resident of Estonia. I'll talk a little about that as well. We have an electronic ID. Every single person in Estonia has an electronic identity. And this is the core of how we enable all of these digital services. So the infrastructure is already there. And we have the electronic identity. We can also sign things digitally. And as you see behind me, we save a stack of paper the size of the Eiffel Tower each month thanks to digital signatures. And it has been calculated that about 2% of the GDP we save by not signing things on paper. And I would say a lot of Estonians have even forgotten how to write their signatures on paper, because all it takes is just a few clicks of a button on your mobile or on your computer. And we have hassle-free taxation. And one thing is also cool. We have a 100% digital building permit process. Now, in Estonia, we have one central system that handles all the building permits in Estonia. The process is managed by local municipalities, but the IT is provided by the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communications. So this is another advantage we have. So there are over 3 million data requests monthly through e-government services. And there's a huge amount of data there already, 400 gigabytes and rising, and millions of documents. But this all sounds wonderful, right? So where's the problem? Well, the problem is that although it's 100% digital, the documents I'm talking about are PDFs, CAD files, drawings, Word documents. In essence, they're not machine readable. I think it was the head of European division for Bentley who said that PDFs are permanent dark files. It's like a black hole. You can't get anything out of it. So that's not really what we're after. We're after, machine readability. So every story has a villain, has an antagonist. So who's the villain in our story? The villain is a graph. Well, actually, it's the low productivity of the construction industry. And this is no news to any of you. And you can see a screenshot of the McKinsey report there, and showing that the productivity in the construction sector is way below all other sectors. And this is something we can also relate to very closely with Ireland. As I understand, the productivity of Ireland, as Alan just mentioned in his talk, is when you compare it to the EU average, quite below there. So we're right next to you guys. Our productivity is half that of the EU average. So I think we're more or less either above or below you, just one notch. So this is the dragon we are slaying. And our strategic objective is to increase the productivity of the Estonian construction sector threefold by 2030. And this might sound ambitious, but taking that we are so low right now, it's kind of a little bit like cheating, but it sounds nice to say we're going to increase it threefold. And one of the reasons that the construction sector is lacking in productivity is the lack of digitization overall. But what are the underlying causes for this? I mean, the low productivity, it's a dragon, it's a villain, but it has many heads. But I think one of the biggest issues that industry has is fragmentation. The large amount of stakeholders, the long building life cycle, and if you think about it, there are so many people, so many organizations involved throughout planning, design, pre-design, pre-construction, construction, contractors, subcontractors of subcontractors, up to the maintenance, handover. Somewhere in between there is the client, somewhere in between there are the users. And these projects take a long time, so there's no denying it. This is a complex industry. So there's not one way to solve the problem. But one thing that we want to do, and research shows is one of the most effective ways to solve the problem, is digitization. And the industry is one of the least digitized. So in our story, coming back to the narrative, the hero in our story is digital transformation. And when you think about all the different stakeholders, then there is actually one stakeholder who is involved in every project. The industry itself is very project-centric, of course, but in every project, in every phase of the building life cycle, the public sector, the government, either local or central, is involved. They have their hands dipped in it through approvals, through various permits, through design, planning, construction, approval, handovers. The government is in a key position, actually, to defragment the industry. So let's take a look at what's the role of government. What does the government do? These are kind of the classic things governments do. They are responsible for legislation, the building code. The ministry where I work for, this is what we do as well. We are responsible for the building code in Estonia, all the regulations related to how you're supposed to build, what kind of rules you're following. This is a strong measure, but it's not an easy thing to change overnight. Education is another sector or another way for the government to influence the whole industry. But again, it takes years and years and years to see results. These are soft measures, I would say. Process improvement. This is where I think also mandates fall under, and where the government stimulates innovation, encourages it, supports it through various means. But looking back at our history, at Estonia as a digital nation, what has worked for us, what has delivered the biggest impact in the shortest time is IT, it's digitization. And that is why we are creating the environment for secure and reliable data exchange for the construction industry as well. And this is what we call the e-construction platform. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this, explain what the construction platform is. But in our narrative, the platform itself is the sword. It is the sword that we will use to slay at least one or two heads of this behemoth of a dragon, which is the low productivity. So what is the e-construction platform? To sum it up in one sentence, it is the way to exchange standardized and trustworthy data between all stakeholders throughout the building lifecycle. Simple, isn't it? But that is the underlying problem that we have everywhere. And that is why it is the role of the government, in my view, who is in the best position to enable this exchange of standardized data. And there's an emphasis on lossless exchange of standardized data, because we are exchanging data every day, most of it maybe through emails, which is not very efficient. So a lot of data gets lost when we go from one phase to the other. We need to fix that. We need to start transitioning to an industry where whatever we create, the data that's created at the beginning of the life cycle lasts until the end. We don't lose, we add to the data. It becomes better and better. If we're creating a digital twin, which I'm also going to touch upon a bit later, then it will become better and better over time. It's like good wine, you know? It gets better. So, and we need this data, not just because, you know, it's cool to digitize things and to be on stage and talk about all these IT stuff that we're doing. It's about making better decisions, better data, better decisions. And when I talk about the productivity, it's not only about the value added, it's not about the euro, it's not only about time, but it's actually about sustainability, the environment, the amount of CO2 we consume as an industry. In Estonia, 50% of all energy produced goes into the building sector. Most of it, of course, to heat houses. It gets cold in Estonia. But still, the construction industry, during construction, also consumes through materials, labor, and a time-consuming process quite a bit of energy, which can be reduced. And when we are designing buildings, we should be thinking about using BIM and digital technologies to design better buildings, smarter buildings, more sustainable buildings. And we also have kind of 3 sub-goals with this platform that we're creating. We want to make BIM the norm. So BIM itself is not a goal for us. It is an enabler. It is the tool. We see it as essential hygiene. You wash your hands not because you just want your hands clean, but because you don't want to get sick, right? So I think we should do BIM because we want to digitally transform the sector. There's no way to do it otherwise. Of course, our focus is also public processes, making them more efficient and more transparent. This is our duty because we have taxpayers' money and we have to be careful with it. We have to be smart with it, and we shouldn't squander it. So that's why we have to make our processes more efficient. But the most exciting part about this platform is, for me at least, is that it enables a whole new opportunity for new services and new digital products. Because we are creating an open platform, and we are not going to create all the software to run all the processes. No, we are going to take care of the government and the public sector processes. You know, building permits, how to manage plannings, stuff like that. But project management, maintenance, supply chain management, this is really not part of the government's job. This is the opportunity for the private sector. But to do the job that they need to do, they also need data, better quality data, better decisions. And that is why there's going to be an interface, an API to this platform to connect your systems, to connect completely new systems, new applications. Think of it a bit like an app store. If you think of the iPhone is a platform where you can publish apps and it runs smoothly because you already have everything in place within the platform. You only need to think about your services and your value add to that. So this is a simplified schematic of the construction platform. It is essentially an integration platform. It's not a super database. Because what we have done in Estonia and what is at the core of the e-government is called the X-Road. And this is the technology that enables us to connect a distributed network of databases and registries and to exchange information between them securely. Now, there's a lot of tech in there, all the way down to blockchain, which has been in use since 2012 in our e-government system to verify and the data that is being transferred. And we, again, have the advantage that to create this kind of a platform, we already have all the pieces in place. We have the e-government infrastructure there. We have electronic identities that we can use to make sure who is accessing data, who is adding data. And all of these processes are already partly there. We just need to apply them to the building industry and to connect the built environment data. And one of the key aspects of this platform is going to be the digital twin. In one way, the digital twin is already existing, but it's fragmented. As the industry, it is spread around different registries, different databases, different systems. You have one data that is replicated in another place slightly differently, but you don't know it. And you can't connect this. So that is the goal of this platform. But let's talk a little bit more about digital twin. First, we need to define it. If you look it up on Google, if you go to Wikipedia, it says it's a digital replica of a living or non-living physical entity. I like to think of it more like a digital mirror of the physical world. And you should never underestimate visualization aspect of the digital twin. Of course, data is important and it is at the core of everything. When machines talk to machines, they can exchange data and they don't need visualization. But humans, as long as humans are in the process, they do need visualization. And that is why creating a visual digital twin is essential for the platform to become successful. And it adds context. And what is information? Information is nothing more but data plus context. And the visualization gives us context. Who recognizes this creature here? Where is this picture from? It's from a movie. Have you seen this movie? Yeah, The Lion King, right? I like to use this example to illustrate, again, what is a digital twin. The lion you see behind me is a digital twin. The environment that the lion is in is also a digital twin because none of it is actually real. It's fully digital. It doesn't exist. But the lion is a digital representation of a physical lion. But what is even more interesting is this picture. You have the director, Jaan at the front line with his team, and they are playing around in the digital twin, in the digital world of the Lion King. And they shot the movie using traditional ways of filmmaking, setting up cameras, setting up rigs, choosing points of location, but they did it all in a virtual environment. They did it in the digital twin. Now, I hope the future of construction is not going to look exactly like this, because this looks a bit weird with all the headsets on. I hope it's going to be a little bit different, but the digital twin is definitely going to be at the center there. And we have already done our prototype of the digital twin. I have a few pictures here. I'm not going to show any videos, but you can check it out yourself. You see, there's a website address over there at the corner. And we connected different types of data, point clouds. We modeled buildings. We used BIM models. We used laser scanning. And we connected all of this to data. So what you see there is an extract of the building registry about one building. And we connected about 10 different databases with this prototype for roads, for buildings, from the land board. And it was a joint project between 3 ministries. So it's all about really connecting not just the data and the systems, but also the people. And not only above ground, but below ground. This is a test section of a road that we scanned with ground radars. And we got a very detailed map of what is underneath, all the piping and stuff like that, and with all the additional properties and information related to that. But, go check it out. But this brings me back to the collaboration part of it. I mean, we really need to work together. It's not just about the government. And as I was talking to Alan today and to some others yesterday at the pub, we really need to have both sides of the coin, the private and the public sector, working together. And if you would have asked 3 or 4 years ago from the Estonian private sector, what is the government doing? Are you happy with what the government is doing? How's digitization? How's the productivity? They would have been quite angry because the government wasn't doing anything. But we listened to them, and now we are doing. And in many cases, we are actually taking the lead because it is the job of the government, being the key stakeholder throughout the building lifecycle, who has the best position to do this. And although you can use mandates, strategies, all of that, we want to deliver. We choose IT because through the building registry, by enabling BIM-based building permits, we are standardizing data because you can only enter one format of BIM files into the system. That is going to be the default standard for the industry. And 25% of construction spent is done by the public sector in Estonia. So that is a huge advantage to us again, because we have direct control over how public sector is spending this money and how they are tendering. So we are right now also creating standardized BIM guidelines and requirements for the public sector as well. And just a few more slides, then I'm finished. Agility. Startup mentality is something that we have also brought to the government. Estonia is known for being one of the top countries with the most startups per capita, and this is how we are approaching and solving the problem as well. No startup in the world would do 3, 4, 5 years of planning and then start creating something. They do it quick. You do it fast to get results. And that's why we're creating the digital twin. We're creating the e-construction platform as an MVP, a minimum viable product. And the story so far is that we want to do it by the end of next year. And this high-level roadmap doesn't go beyond 2021 because we don't really want to plan that far, because we want to deliver by this date. And then, based on feedback, we find out what is the next most painful point we need to address and how we can move quickly, collaboratively together with the private sector. And it's not about just technology or money. It's about leadership, and it's about collaboration. And I urge every one of you to, if you're interested in having online services, you can become an e-resident of Estonia and enjoy all the 99% of the business processes we have online. So you can start a business all from the comfort of your own home here in Ireland, from your computer, and you can run, you can do taxes, and you can do everything that Estonians do, except vote, of course. So with that, I thank you for your attention, and I wish you a very pleasant conference.